Hey, alright, this is Dark Days Radio, episode number 62. I am one of your hosts, Mike, and tonight I'm joined by, starting at the bottom of the order, Matt. How's it going, Matt?
It's going good. Hello, everyone.
Alright. As some of you may remember, Matt's been on the show twice before?
I was on the show itself once before, but I've helped you guys game a few times.
Yeah, definitely. So Matt is our resident werewolf expert and werewolf correspondent. So, of course, as you probably will expect, we're going to be talking about a little Werewolf the Apocalypse tonight. But before we get to that, I need to introduce the other two phenomenal co-hosts here on Darker Days Radio. And, of course, we've got Chigg. How's it going, Chigg?
Going great, Mike. How you doing?
Hey, doing pretty good. I luckily recovered after sleeping on your couch and being mauled by your cats. And, I'm good now.
Company.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. They were really excited that there was someone on the couch all night. And then we're joined by Chris. How's it going, Chris?
Pretty good. Busy, but good.
Yeah, that's what happens. So, what kind of gaming has everyone been doing? Like, what's been going on?
Ooh, as everyone knows, I'm still. It's hard to get a gaming group together right now for stuff, so I am mainly doing toy soldier type stuff. So I have one more mission left in the hybrid boxed game to play through, and then it'll be going into Nemesis, the expansion for that. And I am also digging through. I've now got all the miniatures together for my Ragnarok armies, so I'm looking forward to playing the other kind of Warhammer game that was out. Well, that it was 10 years ago. That was also made by Rackham. And hopefully in the next couple of weeks, there will be a blog post up for Fading Suns by myself on the official Fading Suns blog. And there's an open call for people related to that to help out at Gen Con to demo and be involved in the playtest of Noble Armada 3rd Edition, which again I am involved in. So yeah, lots of stuff. Other than that's about. Actually, that's all really.
Chigg, Chigg, you're going to Gen Con, man. Are you going to help out?
Con. I don't see why not. Aside from I know nothing about it. Aside from I now know that it exists.
Chigg, you could totally be a plant. All right, we'll stick you in a bunch of the games, and then you'll walk away and be like, "That was the best thing ever. Everyone should buy this book."
I think that's more of a shill than a plant, but
yes. My bad. Yeah,
there is a thing where it's kind of paint one get one. So I think because of course they'll need fleets for the demo games, so it would mean that you could get to keep a Noble Armada fleet if you paint them. And painting toy soldiers, which are actually just toy spaceships, is like the easiest thing in the world.
Hey, have them send some my way.
Well, there's an email up. There's a link on the Darker Days Facebook. I'll plug that at the end because it feels shameless plugging it right now.
Oh, right, my bad. Okay. Cool. All right. Other gaming going on. Chigg, listen. I went down to Texas. All right, went to PAX South. It was a good time. And on my way there, I stopped off in Dallas and we hung out. And in my pocket that entire time, I had 2 decks for Arcadia the Wild Hunt. And guess what we did not play?
Well, I did not go through your pockets, so I was unaware of this.
Listen, man.
This is all on you.
Listen. Probably should have played. I don't know. It got late.
Yeah. But, we had tacos, so that was great.
Yeah, those are good tacos, man. Those are really good tacos.
Told you.
Yeah. Other than that, I don't know. I guess I played like D&D once since the last episode. We haven't been doing that too much. But I'll be playing tomorrow before the Super Bowl, so that'll be good. And that's most of my tabletop gaming right there, unfortunately. PAX South, I double shifted the entire thing, so I didn't really get to do anything.
Well, I didn't go to PAX South, but I've been gaming.
Oh, really? All right, Chigg, what have you been doing?
Well, I say gaming. Mostly we've been doing board games because people have been out and there were holidays and there was a new year and people were gone and this, that, and the other. But we played some Arcadia Quest, which is a fun little board game. And it kind of has a little evolving storyline where it's almost RPG-ish, sort of, if you squint.
I've heard good things about that because James has been playing that. And
it's surprisingly fun.
He's played also the Super Dungeon Explorer, which is also by the same company.
Cool Mini or Not.
Yeah, and he said that Arcadia Quest is better because it doesn't take the turns don't feel like they take as long, because in the other one, you move the players and then all the monsters move. This one apparently is a bit more reactive and active.
Yeah, it's got really quick gameplay.
That's good.
Slow setup, like a lot of board games these days, but once you get into the game, it's super fun.
Because each player is in control of like a little guild.
Yeah,
right?
you have 3 characters that you play, and there are a dozen to choose from or whatever, so you can have 4 players.
So it's not even co-op?
No, it is absolutely not. In all but the most recent scenario, to win a scenario or a level or whatever you want to call it, you have to complete 3 goals. There's only been 2 non-PvP goals in each scenario so far. So you have to fight each other at least once.
That's good. Wicked.
Nice. All right, Matt, what have you been doing?
I did more than that. Go ahead, skip.
Oh, fine. God, Chigg, fine.
I know, Mike. I know.
What else?
I want to brag because I'm having fun.
Oh, great.
Got my copy of Cthulhu Wars in from the Kickstarter.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice,
It's massive. The minis are incredibly well sculpted and detailed. Mine were not damaged, unlike some people's apparently. It is a super duper fun game of destroying the earth and feeding the inhabitants to, Cthulhu monsters. So that was super fun.
Do you feel compelled to paint the miniatures, or are you going to just
absolutely not? No, they come color coded.
Yeah, exactly. I guess you could paint them, and I think you could paint them and at least color code the edge of the bases.
Sure, you could, but I'm super bad at painting and also lazy, so I have no desire to paint these minis. I fear that I would just ruin the gorgeous work that the sculptors have done. And finally, last thing, I promise. I have started running a Star Wars Edge of the Empire game for my group.
Wait a minute, Chigg. I thought you were going to do Star Wars D6.
Yeah, so did I, but I put it up to a vote, and the table was against me.
Sucker.
We're doing Edge of the Empire.
All right, no, it's a good system, and
it is, and even though it has the funky dice, it's surprisingly easy to pick up and figure out.
Yeah. And if people remember, that's a similar system to what Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 3rd Edition uses. Slightly more refined based on the experiences with that game.
It's got less. Is it less? It's got less little bits, chits and
way
stuff.
less.
That's good.
As
there
are
none.
0.
Oh, so it's just
you can
the dice.
buy like power cards and such if you want to.
Oh right.
Yeah, cards are optional,
but not necessary.
Cool.
Yeah. Yep, good stuff. All right, Matt, what's going on, man?
Well, I've been actually playing some 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons lately.
Nice. High five, dude. Through the internet?
Well, it's okay, but we've been doing the War Against the Dragon Queen adventure path.
Oh, really?
Which seems designed to basically murder the party as quickly as possible without the direct intervention of the DM.
Yeah, I can see that. 5th edition in general is more dangerous than, say, 4th edition. It's back to the kind of 2nd edition roots where when you're first level, you really can just get beaten up by a bunch of kobolds. So,
right, but that's not even the thing. It's like, it's not even that. It's, okay, the party gets challenged to battle by a, guy with 5 times your possible hit points and the ability to attack 3 times, which is something fighters don't even get till 10th level, and you're level 1. Like, he can kill you in one round if he doesn't roll below a 5 with at least 2 of his attacks. Like, that is something you are supposed to take on at first level as a party.
Well, you need to use your wits and a wisdom to defeat him. And hopefully the storyteller helps a lot.
No, I got brought down to negative 10 hit points in one round. And then he laughed at us and ran and walked away.
Well, I mean, wouldn't you laugh at him and walk away if you brought someone down to negative 10 in one attack? I mean, come on. I would.
But yeah, I spent most of the adventure path dead, like half dead or dying. So...
No, dude, that's pretty true. I mean, when I play 5th edition, my wizard's like taking a dirt nap every single battle.
Yeah, it's way more rocket taggy than 4th edition was, because there's a lot of things that, like, apparently paladins are one of the better martial classes, just because of the fact that their smite is triggered on hit, and the way that crits work in 5th edition basically rewards you for having lots of dice. So you can say, oh, I crit. I'll expend my 6th level spell slot to get an extra 30 d6s on this damage roll.
Yep, I believe it. Cool, but overall, you think the system's an improvement over 4th edition, 3rd edition?
I'd say it's an improvement over 3rd edition. There are still some things in 4th edition that I prefer, and there's a lot of things.
Get out of my house.
Oh, fine. Well, no, it's like there's a lot of things in 5th edition, like it seems like they cribbed ideas from 4th edition, but they changed them just enough so that it punishes having that kind of role-playing muscle memory from 4th edition. Like, the idea of there being discrete encounter powers, but the fact that a short rest in 5th edition is an hour of uninterrupted rest, whereas in 4th edition it was just, oh, I guess I'll just sit around for 5 minutes. So there's a power that's like, one of those, like, clerics and paladins still have channel divinity, which is supposed to be like a utility power you have every combat. But you don't, because now it requires you to sit around for an hour to get it back. So it's like things like that where it's like they definitely downgraded the power of not casters and brought 9-level casters back up to the level they were in 3rd edition.
Yep. And as a person playing a wizard, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
As a person who was playing a paladin, I do.
Unfortunate. All right, cool. So anyway, this is a World of Darkness podcast. We should probably talk about the World of Darkness. So why don't we all move on over to the news segment? Okay. Onyx Path has put out a couple cool things lately, so let's first talk about the Mage Fallen World Anthology, which is a collection of short stories for the Mage the Awakening 2nd edition, which should be coming out pretty soon. It's definitely pretty cool, and it's selling very well. It's actually outselling, the PDF copy is outselling the PDF of Planescape, the AD&D 2nd edition campaign setting that was just released. So I think that speaks very well for the popularity of Mage the Awakening. In addition to that, Damnation City for Vampire the Requiem is now finally in print. This is notable because it's not been in print for a long time. It's a giant book. I think it's 400-something pages. It's quite the tome, and it's kind of cool to see it finally in print so people can get it. For a reasonable price as well. I think it's like $35 US for a hardcover, which is, not bad for a 400-page book.
That's pretty cheap.
Yep. And moving right along, Wraith the Oblivion 20th Anniversary Edition finally had its Kickstarter, which was successful with $295,000. They've got a plethora of stretch goals, mostly introducing new short stories and sections to the Book of Oblivion, as well as the cool character primer little booklet.
And T-shirts. Don't forget the T-shirts.
All right, Chigg. We need to I just ignore the T-shirts at this point.
T-shirts of the damned.
I would be curious to ask off the record, Rich Thomas, how many T-shirts he actually sells, because they keep pushing them. Somebody's got to be buying them.
They must get a good deal on them at Redbubble or wherever they're going.
Or they're selling just a giant volume.
I guess that's possible.
Yeah, it could be. Awesome. And speaking of Kickstarters, there's another Kickstarter going on. It's the Dark Eras Sourcebook Kickstarter. Dark Eras is a new sourcebook for the World of Darkness, both first and second edition material. And it's going to be covering different eras of history in the World of Darkness for specific game lines. So, for example, actually, you know what? Let's just run down the complete list, because I know we've mentioned this on the show before, and we've just kind of given you guys like a smattering of the different time periods. But let's just go through it right now. So, for Vampire the Requiem, we have a Requiem for Regina, which is the Elizabethan era in England. For Werewolf, we have the Bowery Dogs, which is New York City in the 1970s. For Mage the Awakening, we have To the Strongest, which is the Alexander the Great period from 330 to 320 BCE. For Promethean the Created, we have A Handful of Dust, which is the Great Depression, and specifically the Dust Bowl in the American Midwest in the 1930s. For Change of the Lost, we have The Lily, Saber, and the Thorn, which is the era of the Age of Reason under Louis XIV, which is pretty cool, and that's when Louis XIV built the Palace of Versailles. For Hunter the Vigil, we have Doubting Souls, which is set in the North American colonies, specifically around the time of the Salem witch trials and the witch scares in New England. For Geist the Singers, we have God's Own Country, which is a post-World War II look at New Zealand and the strife going on there at that time. For Mummy the Curse, there's Ruins of the Empire, set in the Victorian era and the Edwardian era in the United Kingdom. It looks at both the United Kingdom and the Ottoman Empire, and really just failing empires at that time. Mm-hmm. And finally, for Demon the Descent, we have Into the Cold, which looks at East Germany and the Cold War era of the 1960s. So there we go, guys. And in addition to that, they're doing something really interesting with the Dark Eras Kickstarter. And people that are backing it have the option of voting on specific extra sections that will be added to the book. So, for example, the first poll that they had was allowing people to decide between a Vampire the Requiem setting for the First World's Fair in Chicago, or a German kind of pre-Victorian era setting for Changeling the Lost, centered around the time when Grimm's fairy tales were being put out.
I think that one's the favorite right now.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's by a landslide.
I can't see a way that one would not win over
Yeah, I know.
the World's Fair with vampires.
I mean, it could be cool, but what I was thinking when I cast my ballot was that, Chicago has gotten 5 different game lines looking at it. It's had, obviously, Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf the Apocalypse, and then for New World of Darkness, it's had... Actually, I guess New World of Darkness has both the World of Darkness itself, as well as Vampire, Werewolf, and Mage. So we've looked at Chicago quite a bit, and I think Germany, deserves a little bit of extra material. Because when you look at Vampire the Masquerade, we had Berlin by Night, which is not a very highly regarded source book, to say the least. But, it could be cool to get some more Change in the Lost information in general, and I think that that time period will definitely reflect it well.
This Kickstarter is also quite interesting in that you can back and thus get the chapter that you want. So if you don't give a damn about any of the games but say Promethean, you can just back $5 and get the Promethean chapter, and that's kind of good, because I mean, obviously it draws a lot of people in. I've backed for the PDF because I don't need more hard copies, and I generally only go for hard copies of core books. So the whole thing is going to be great, and if it's going to get padded out with more settings, that's good. And also, something which I need to do is you can back, and then for an extra $15, you will get the PDF of New World of Darkness 2nd edition when it is released later this year. So that's quite a bargain, I think. Also, there's a New World of Darkness Dark Eras storyteller screen, which I'm sure will be nice and pretty. Yeah, I think there's a lot of cool stuff there. I think all of those settings are useful for even if you're not playing that particular game line. So, for example, the Hunter one ties in very well with the Boston setting for Mage. And say, let's think. I guess the werewolf one the werewolf one would also be adequate for maybe giving you some ideas for vampire. Oh, and also the Vampire the Requiem setting, because it deals with Tudor England and the kind of like the spies at that time, and why can't I think of its name? John Dee. That would also be adequate as material for Mage. So I think each of these chapters can be mined for any of the games.
I'm actually interested in that Salem Witch Trials setting for a variety of reasons, to see how they handle it, and to see if there's a faction of hunters that chops off bits of witches and grafts them onto their body to get their powers. Because I know that's a hunter faction.
That is a hunter faction, yes.
So it's like,
for a minute I was worried that was some weird fetish that you have, Matt.
No, it's not. That's actually a thing in Hunter the Vigil, is that there's a faction that does that. So it's like, does she weigh less than a duck? Awesome! Lop off her arm. I need a new one.
That could be pretty interesting. Nice. All right. And finally, Chigg, you have something that you want to bring up, something that was officially announced.
It is the most important news thus far in 2015. Scheduled for fall of 2015, Changing the Dreaming 20th Anniversary Edition. It was in the meeting notes 5 days ago, January 26th. It's for real gonna happen.
Cool. You saving up?
I'm in for like 12 books. I don't care.
Whoa.
I will personally fund this if I have to.
At the $500,000 backer level, we have Sandchigger.
It wouldn't be that much. I mean, their goal is only $40,000 for the Dark Era's Prestige Edition book, so I could take out a mortgage or something.
I know. I was saying, like, you funding the
Second
entire
mortgage.
Kickstarter by yourself.
Nice. Okay. So that's pretty much it for Onyx Path news right now. But just to go take a quick look over at our friends at the Midnight Express, they've been putting out quite a few episodes. Midnight Express, of course, is the Classic World of Darkness podcast hosted by our friends Adrian and Steve. And they've had some good stuff lately. For example, they've had Chronicle Design in the Old World of Darkness with a guest host, Peter Marshall, who is our Dark Days Radio Australian correspondent. In addition to that, they had a episode looking at prophecy and secret knowledge in the Classic World of Darkness with our good friend Beckett. So definitely good to see him hopping on to some podcasts. And then, guys, this kind of hurts. We've got 2 episodes talking about Mage, and guess who was on them? We had Adrian, understandable. Beckett, of course, very knowledgeable about the World of Darkness. But also, Mark Hope, executive producer of Dark Days Radio. What is he doing on this podcast, guys? Are we not paying him enough? We gave him a 100% increase last year. I mean, he should be totally happy and content. Why is he two-timing and going on these other podcasts?
It was a really good podcast, in his defense.
I've yet to listen to those.
I mean,
Yeah.
phenomenal.
With how well that one's going, and with recent comments I've seen on Facebook, again, I think, was it Matt McFarlane saying about something about people again complaining about New World of Darkness? I feel more and more driven to sort out a New World of Darkness specific spin-off podcast. I mean, I think we've bounced that one around for a while, and it would be maybe an extra. It would be kind of nice to have that next to Darker Days and next to Midnight Express, especially with all these new editions turning up. So yeah, cool.
Yep,
Lots of stuff
definitely
going on.
So if you want to check out some more old and classic World of Darkness material, definitely check out the Midnight Express. All right, team. So I think it's time that we start to tackle some more stuff on this episode. And next up is your Rage Across Russia. So let's go on over to the classic World of Darkness segment.
Classic World of Darkness.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, Mike.
So remember like a couple weeks ago when I was like, hey, we should totally review Rage Across Russia. It's got to be a great book.
And then you actually read the book.
Yeah, then I actually read it. So this is gonna be interesting, guys. This is one of those great challenges here on Dark Days Radio where we stumble across a book that, you know, there's some cool stuff in it. It really has these glimmers of hope. But good God, Werewolf First Edition had some very, very strange and problematic ideas, which we're definitely going to be going through. So, Matt, let me just kind of introduce to our listeners kind of the setting overview of Rage Across Russia, just so they can kind of, see the playing field before we dig into some of the good stuff and the not-so-good stuff. So, Rage Across Russia. As you'd expect, werewolves live in Russia, and they've been there for a very long time. As it turns out, this is kind of historical context, Russia, according to this book, is controlled by by vampires, essentially. In Tsarist Russia, it's the Ventru and the Toreador clan of vampires that control it. Then the Bourgeois Council goes and starts a revolution and leads the people to inadvertently create the Soviet Union. It's kind of not that great. It's not that good, but the Bourgeois, they keep trying to work with it. They keep doing things. All the while, the werewolves feel as though they're very disenfranchised by the Soviet Union and its vampire overlords. They help fight in the Second World War and the First World War, but they don't do anything major because, White Wolf doesn't like to touch those two wars. As we fast forward through 50 years of history and environmental disaster, we get to the current meta plot, which is that Michael Gorbachev is the premier of the Soviet Union and starts enacting all these reforms, which the Bourgeois Council finds counter to their own plans. They soon find out that a evil Nosferatu Methuselah, Baba Yaga, has awoken from torpor and is now controlling Michael Gorbachev and possibly Boris Yeltsin. But Boris Yeltsin might also be controlled by the werewolves.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes. But wait, there's more. There's more, Matt, isn't there?
There's always more.
For one thing, for the most part, between Kiev Rus and the era of Tsarist Russia, it was ruled by the Silverfang and their kinfolk, and that's their major claim to fame, is that the Silverfangs are the tribe of rulers, and of course they are kinfolk to every single ruler of Russia right up until the October Revolution. But then you've got all the problems with the fact that there were the basically the little city councils in all of the various areas of the Kiev Rus, and those, of course, were ruled by the Glasswalkers, and the Silverfangs didn't like that because democracy is evil. And it just gets really confusing once the vampires get involved with it, and then communism happens and everything goes down the tubes.
Exactly. But don't worry, guys. Don't worry. Communism is gone by the time we get to 1993, when this book was published.
I
And at
was
that
gonna
time, what's up?
Can I just can we have a spoil? Does Rasputin turn up in this?
Yes.
Yeah, he's mentioned.
Brilliant.
Of course, Rasputin turns up in this.
You mean Rasputin, who is probably a Nosferatu, who is probably a Ventru, who is probably a Tzimisce, and who might also be a Korax Rasputin? Yes,
Oh,
he shows up in the book.
Is he not also a Nefandi?
He is all sorts of things, because every single faction seems to want to claim Rasputin.
Oh dear.
Yeah,
Yep.
Rasputin is a 19th century Samhain.
Yeah, pretty much. He was a wraith. He was a puppeteer, I believe, as well as every single vampire clan, a couple werewolf tribes, Nefandi, and I don't know, maybe a marauder.
Well, basically, the problem is that, again, this is a first edition book, so everyone was trying to claim him as a member of their faction, because that would give them, oh, we had our fingers in this pot, and we were working during this era. And, the Mad King Rasputin doing something kind of, oh, hey, awesome, he did a lot of stuff. We want to claim him.
Indeed,
Anyway.
indeed. So that's kind of the historical basis to all of this. There's a couple other things. For example, the Time of Troubles was just a pissing match between vampires and werewolves. Had nothing to do with mortal politics at all. And so on and so forth. But let's talk about the modern setting, the game you be playing in here in Ridge Across Russia as a pack of werewolves. Well, Baba Yaga, who, as we mentioned before, is an evil vampire, evil magical vampire, actually, has erected the Shadow Curtain, which is a supernatural barrier that makes crossing into the Umbra more difficult, preventing easy travel across moon bridges between cairns, and cutting off the werewolves and other beings from the outside world, or at least making escape more difficult. Baba Yaga, of course, is beginning to control many other vampires, such as the Bruja Council, and assemble them into her various armies, which she's going to use for evil purposes. Baba Yaga also teams up with the Black Spiral Dancers and some other bad guys like the Marauders. So, of course, the werewolves and you, the players, are going to need to fight them. And that is Rage Across Russia, the 1993 White Wolf book. It's got a lot of rough edges, but Matt, I think that we can, kind of sift through here and pick out some of the gems. What do you think?
We can try. I'm willing to give a good go at it.
Okay, all right. Do you want to cover the rough stuff first or the gems? What are you thinking?
I think we should cover the rough stuff first, because it'll make the gems shine a little bit brighter.
Okay, all right, great. So, one of the things that I kind of noticed or actually discovered while looking through this book is that it really reads like a vampire source book. I mean, most of the enemies are vampires, like half the NPCs are vampires. It kind of stood out. And the reason for that is actually that Rage Across Russia has its roots in a vampire source book, which is World of Darkness First Edition, which came out in 1991 or very early 1992. And it's based off of really maybe like a one-page section talking about Russia, and specifically the rise of Baba Yaga. It seems that for some reason, White Wolf decided that they wanted to make a werewolf source book that was set in Russia, and then they had it tie in very closely to that vampire metaplot that they'd begun. So in that first edition book, in World of Darkness First Edition, it's actually kind of interesting because it's far less blatant and in your face. It seems as though there's kind of just this hint that maybe Michael Gorbachev was being influenced, perhaps, by Baba Yaga, but it's nothing as overt as what's described in Rage Across Russia. In addition to that, one of the other strange things about this book is that the metaplot is actually continued in vampire books, such as World of Darkness Second Edition, which is essentially a vampire book, and the metaplot-heavy adventure book for Vampire the Masquerade called Knights of Prophecy, where Baba Yaga is eventually defeated in that source book by you and your player characters.
So she's defeated in a vampire book?
Yes, by vampires. But it's okay. It's okay, because the werewolves, they kind of see like, oh, Baba Yaga's gone. We'll take credit for that.
Yeah, I was going to say, because World of Rage seems to paint it as a werewolf victory after she weakened herself against the vampires.
Yep, I don't know. It's weird, man. It's weird. So, moving on from that, there's some other really bizarre stuff, especially things having to do with space. So, Matt, why is this werewolf sourcebook talking about space?
Because the Black Spiral Dancers have a pit on Mir, the space station.
Sounds legit.
Sorry, say that again. Black Spiral Dancers have what?
A worm cairn on Mir, the space station.
Okay.
Details can be found in Book of the Worm First Edition, which I unfortunately do not have. But,
I do.
Okay.
Would you like to borrow it someday? It's incredibly good.
I sense some sarcasm.
Well, it's incredible anyway. I mean,
So, let's just understand this. So, let's just assuming that I'm completely novice on Werewolf the Apocalypse, which I actually am. How does that actually happen? How is the Mir space station a cairn for that is aligned to the worm?
Well, in many ways, it probably can't. Cairns are supposed to represent points of extreme spiritual significance, and I'm pretty sure Mir wasn't in geostationary orbit, so I don't, it's just a thing. It's like Mir is a worm cairn, and it's a direct path to Malpheus, lair of the worm, and it exists.
you have to think of it in terms of Russia is bad because these books are printed in America. Therefore, any advancement that Russia has, such as a space station, is clearly evil and tainted somehow.
Right.
Yep.
That's one thing that I really noticed when I was reading the book, is that this came out in 1993, so it's only like 1 or 2 years since the fall of the wall came down and news started coming out of Russia. So, there really wasn't much information.
The wall came down in 1989.
Okay, well,
Just,
still,
so
still only 40 years.
Yeah, it's still very, very relatively recent at the time, so it was still fresh in the minds of Americans. And well, if you really want to stretch your brain a little bit about how Mir can be a worm hive or have any spiritual significance, one, the Russian cosmonauts were clearly evil people. I mean, they put Sputnik up there to spy on America, right? I mean, the Russian Space Agency is clearly bad from the get-go. And
They
two,
mostly sent werewolves up in when they send the dogs up for the tests. Those were all werewolves.
right, exactly.
Surely.
Exactly. Those were obviously kinfolk, yeah. And two, when you get away from the Earth, the barrier between worlds becomes a little bit thinner.
Yeah.
So sure, that's a great place to set up your hive of scum and villainy.
Well, funny thing about that, apparently some Russian cosmonauts crashed in the Siberian wilderness, and they were accosted by a pack of red talons because, humans using technology getting trapped in our lands. But then they decided to let them go, because if humans want to leave Earth, the red talons are perfectly fine with that.
Oh, brilliant.
Yep. Thank you, White Wolf. And just a couple other weird things that are in here is, for example, another Black Spiral pit is a sunken nuclear sub. I don't when is that going to come up in a game? How are werewolves even going to get there? Are they going to have to hijack their own nuclear sub just to get down to the Arctic Ocean to attack this other hive? What?
It's the hunt for Black Spiral October, clearly, Mike.
Right, exactly.
You could get at it from the Umbra, but okay, here we are. I found the write-up on the Mir space station in the Book of the Worm. If you want me to go over that,
no. Seriously, I would find it really interesting because it's I only find it interesting because of obviously how the approach that Werewolf the Forsaken takes to things coming from space, and how the great spiritual entities of like the Neverborn and the what they call the Idigum were banished to the moon. So anything to do with werewolves and things to do with space and how it can tie in. I mean, it could be redeemable. I don't know yet.
all right. Here we are in low orbit over Earth, outside of the realm of Gaia, drifts the abandoned Soviet space station Mir. In return for favors and help from Baba Yaga, a hideous Slavic vampire, the Black Spiral Dancers have been able to establish a cairn of great power here. Puppeteer Banes possessed the last cosmonauts and forced them to enact the necessary rites, while the Banes willingly burned themselves out to provide the necessary gnosis. The Black Spirals can now travel by Moonbridge to its cold interior, to dance their many mad revels and rites to the worm. These rites serve immense power because they are outside of the grasp of Gaia, yet still within her earthly realm. The true power of the cairn is that a moon bridge can be opened from here to the dread realm of Malpheus. This is unprecedented, as one must usually travel to an anchorhead or far column domain for this purpose. The Black Spirals try to keep this secret from Baba Yaga, for if she were to realize the potential power, she might shut it down or take it over.
Right.
Yeah, that goes completely counter to basically everything about cairns that I know ever. You can't just make one, and you can't just make a level 3 cairn out of whole cloth, which apparently this is.
I believe they made it out of possessor spirits, Matt.
Thank you, Bryce. Thank you.
I'm here for you.
All right. Okay.
Oh wow! I mean, it's kind of a neat idea when you think about it, because at the time it was the largest space station there was, and it has very kind of, I guess, thematically, it has that kind of Event Horizon feel to it. I mean, years before Event Horizon was a film, but I think you could still use it, but it's just like. It's a bit crazy, isn't it? Like, your group of werewolf player characters have to go via Moonbridge to the Mir space station. It's like, wow, that's a pretty big event.
Well,
yeah.
No, and another Black Spiral cairn in Russia is the Chernobyl nuclear reactor.
Oh, of course. Of course. You sure this book isn't actually Werewolf the Apocalypse, The Dark Side of the Moon? Because I'm sure this is a Transformers film.
No, but apparently, like, the Black Spiral Dancers are also, like, since there was a success at the Mir space station, they're trying to take over Russia's space program.
Of course.
Yeah, sounds legit. No, there's definitely a couple times where I had to just go back, like, check the cover and make sure that this was not a Rift source book, because it's pretty out there. But okay, what else do we have here, Matt? What other kind of strange things were there? Of course, this is a very early setting book for The World of Darkness, so it of course includes that travel guide section, which is ultimately 4 pages of uselessness. I already assumed that there were hotels in Russia. I didn't really need a section telling me that, yes, they exist. Or some very annoying charts on pronunciation trying to tell me how to correctly pronounce Mikhail Gorbachev. Is that good enough for you, Chigg?
Mikhail
That works for me, yes.
Okay.
That's pretty good. I mean, I don't mind that too much with pronunciation. I think that can sometimes help with the immersion. The whole thing, like, yeah, Russia has hotels. What else is in the travel guide? Like, what else is there?
Russia has running water also.
Really?
I think the problem isn't so much that it's a travel guide. It's a very like patronizing travel guide. He said it's only 4 pages, and most of that time is spent going over the many eco-disasters that Russia has partaken of in the past 50 years.
That's pretty shitty. That's really that's a bit mean, really, given. I mean, if you could do a travel guide of like New York, and you could go, hey, you know, let's just talk about certain power stations melting down or something like that, or yeah.
Also, the background that Russia is a horrible, horrible place to live if you're a werewolf, and it's full of evil people.
Yeah,
It fits the narrative, if not, reality.
no.
Well, yes and no. Like, this was back in first edition when this was the gothic punk world.
Yeah, it's a bit Slay Industries.
Tad bit, yeah.
Like, this is supposed to be darker and edgier than the real world of darkness.
Yeah. Cool. Anyway, moving on from Mir and how Russia is a complete desolate hellhole filled with vampires. What's next?
Well, I mean, I think we kind of expended a lot of the really bad stuff right there. I'm sure there's some... Well, actually, Matt, you could probably talk about some of the peculiar politics of the tribes, since you're reviewing that just before the show.
Right. Well, mainly the fact is that, like, in first edition Werewolf, a lot of the writers were still coming off of Vampire, and so even though the tribes were supposed to be nominally aligned, there's a lot of backstabbing and infighting between them, and a lot of political machinations, such to the point that the Red Talons, the tribe made entirely of Wolfborns, is a major political power in the Guru Nation of Russia. And, like, there's a lot of things that just don't really make sense. Like, the Children of Gaia, the tribe of peace-loving nature people, are actually trying to assassinate most of the Red Talon leadership. The Red Talons are working to try and get the Impergium started up again, which is, the systematic murder of most of humanity. And the rest of the Guru are basically okay with that, except for the Glasswalkers, when that's not really the case at all. It's just... There's all sorts of things that basically make them sound more like... or vampires that dress up like wolves rather than werewolves.
Right. And plus, Matt, what happened to the Glasswalkers? Weren't they exiled?
No, the Children of Gaia were exiled because they allowed the Russians to detonate nuclear weapons. Apparently, they alone were supposed to stop that. And because they failed to, the Red Talons slaughtered most of their tribe and drove them out of Russia.
Yeah, okay, alright. Okay, guys. Okay, we started at the bottom, guys. We started at the bottom, but it's gonna get better now. Let's move on to some of the more kind of interesting, notable things about the book. Maybe not good, maybe not bad, but just kind of cool things that I noticed while going through here. I think the first one to go over is actually this very small section at the end of the tribe politics in that chapter, which is actually this sort of a sub-tribe, a mixture of the Wendigo and the Silverfangs, called the Sibarak. There's not much detail given on them. They're kind of just this almost footnote in the book, but there's a couple of cool story ideas. Essentially, there were a group of Silverfangs that noticed that the pure breed practices of their tribe was causing this madness to occur, and to sort of help themselves out, they began to basically join into the Wendigo tribes in Siberia and sort of start their own cadet branch. The cool idea here is that there's this theory going on between a couple of the other tribes that know about them, that these guys actually might be better leaders than the Silverfangs and may be able to redeem the leadership of that tribe in the region of Russia, simply because the Silverfangs have really lost all of their power and are kind of just flailing at this point politically.
Particularly in first edition.
Indeed. So it is kind of a cool idea. The only problematic thing about it is that they have this vibe that since they've kind of gone back to nature, they're therefore more pure and are there for a better culture, which is sort of this unfortunate revisionist thing that we get a lot in Werewolf First Edition. So I think if you kind of modify the idea of this and make it that since the Sibarak are more, say, less political and more military leaders, they might be of much more benefit to the werewolf tribes in Russia, and that's why these other competing factions actually want to increase their power and make them kind of stake their own claim in the political sphere of the Guru nation in this region. And I think that could be kind of a cool story to play, taking this cadet branch, as I mentioned, and making them the new claimants to the throne, essentially.
I also like the idea that there can be sub-tribes. You don't. I mean, it's always pointed out that not every werewolf claims his parents' tribe or whatever, and I mean, there's always the Ronin. But aside from the Cyberrock and the not the Skinners, but well, maybe we're the Skinners. It's never shown that there are beyond the 13 original tribes. There's no real organization outside of that.
I like the Sibarak as well because they're kind of cool, but like you said, there is that slight problem of them being closer to nature, and there's also the problem that since they're the descendants of the Silver Fangs and the Wendigo, that sort of makes them magical Native Americans, which is in itself a problem that White Wolf had in First Edition.
Yeah.
Except for they're not really in America, but yeah, I see your point. Yeah.
Well, it's like because supposedly they were formed back before the ice
the
bridge.
land bridge, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so they've been, hiding out in the wilds of Siberia for the past, 2,000 plus years.
Sure, sounds right. Yeah.
And no one's really seen them or heard anything of them. Yeah. So moving on from the Sibarak, let's talk about Baba Yaga a little bit. We mentioned the history and all that in the background and how kind of convoluted and contrived and ridiculous it is. But Baba Yaga as a character is actually somewhat interesting. For example, she's actually a Humanity Zero NPC, Humanity Zero vampire, which you don't see that many of in Vampire the Masquerade books. And despite being Humanity Zero, which means you're completely inhuman, and usually they're considered these whites, which mostly just wake up, feed, and hunt, and have lost all of their almost sentience. Baba Yaga seems to really be quite in control. I mean, she's got these maddening machinations and these crazy magical spells that she can cast, and summons dragons and all this other stuff. So she is quite interesting in that regard. The only problem is, and I think this is because this is a werewolf book, so they wanted to make a very overt enemy for the Guru to oppose. She's written as having these different armies. The armies of the Void, Night, Conversion, War, Arcane, and Despair. So how exactly you're supposed to portray these in a game, I'm not sure, and the book does not really explain it very well. Are your werewolves, I should say, supposed to have these back alley brawls against these masses of puppeted vampires and ghouls, or is it something that's supposed to be more subtle, where despite being called these different armies, they're more in control of specific corporations, let's say, making them a sort of shoo-in for Pentex in the Rage Across Russia setting. I don't know, do you guys have any ideas on how maybe this could be used? I'll take that as a no.
Yeah, she's got, she's the big bad. She's the final boss of this video game sourcebook.
Well, she's the final boss, but they gave her stats, but not health levels. So it's like, you're not really supposed to interact with her on any meaningful level. In fact, most of the generals of armies don't have health levels. Only the Army of the Void has guys given wound levels that are supposed to be attacked, apparently.
Well, she should have 7 health levels like any other person, right?
Yeah, she's not like, a big giant monster. I mean, she's a monster, but she's not, she's an inhuman monster. But yeah, she's not a dragon or anything.
True. Like that's the thing. Like I'm thinking, somebody who's supposed to be like that big bad should have more health levels, because if not, then somebody gets a lucky crit and she is dead. But I don't know.
She did die in 2000. So
yes.
Wait, hold on a second. Let me consult World of Darkness First Edition and see if there's any health levels given to her in there. Baba Yaga, Humanity 0, Willpower 10.
Now, is she Humanity 0 because they had only just recently come out with Paths of Enlightenment?
Oh, they had not come out with it. Or, yeah, I guess they had just published them.
Yeah, they came out in 92.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like she's on a path, though, but she has Conscious 0, Self-Control 2, and Courage 4.
Well, there you go. Find the paths that have conscious self-control and courage and pick one for her.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, sorry, just looking through, none of these NPCs in World of Darkness First Edition have any health levels listed, because I think you're just supposed to assume that they have 7 health levels, as any normal mortal being. But, anyway.
Right, I mean, I guess I'm just looking at this from the viewpoint of a werewolf player, where if you've got a single enemy that's supposed to be taken on by a pack, if they don't have more than 7 health levels, they're going to last a single round at best.
Well, she has plot immunity.
Right. Look at this amazing NPC that someone else is going to kill in a book you'll have to buy.
In, 7 years or so, yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed. But speaking of omnipotent beings that don't have any health levels, let's also talk about the Zemi dragons. Matt, what's your opinion of these? There's 5 pages dedicated to them, and they're pretty ridiculous.
Well, the Zemi, I think, are interesting, but the thing is, they're basically just plot devices. You aren't be able to kill them. You're just supposed to bind them. I suppose you could kill them, but they're the claws of they're plus the claws of the worm. They yes, you can kill them. Congratulations, you've severely weakened Baba Yaga, but good luck actually accomplishing that feat.
Yeah, understood. So the Zemi dragons are kind of this interesting plot point in the book, where Baba Yaga, being a big evil sorceress, has summoned dragons, which you can now fight. The only thing is that, unfortunately, in the past, when the Guru were even stronger and more better organized, they did challenge, them and many kinfolk challenged the Zemi dragons. And unfortunately, they killed one, but were unable to defeat any of the others. It was only by using this binding ritual that they were able to suppress them. And of course, in the context of Rage Across Russia, Baba Yaga is back, and she's now awakening her remaining dragons. So it does provide this kind of a interesting giant enemy for your werewolves to battle, perhaps one that they cannot defeat through just fang and claw. But I'm a little bit at a loss to figure out what you're supposed to do with them, because you can't really have a giant dragon. I mean, you could have a giant dragon flying over Moscow, but it's really counter to the themes and mood that many World of Darkness games have. So that's really the only issue I see with them, is that while they're sort of an interesting mythical creature for your characters to stand against, you're going to have to do it out in the wastelands of Siberia, or something like that, where it's not going to have too many prying eyes.
You're going to bring this Zemi and not talk about Tunguska? Apparently the Tunguska Blast was where a great mage actually fought one of the Zemi to a standstill, and then, an Uktena came in afterwards and rebound it.
Well, that was awful nice of them.
Yeah. It's just like a sidebar in the history chapter. It's like, oh, by the way, Tunguska happened in here somewhere.
Pretty ridiculous. The only other thing to note is that Durga Sin is in here, and she is an NPC in the Giovanni Chronicles. Just a little fun fact right there. Okay, Matt. All right. Let's get to the good stuff. Because you know what? There are some cool ideas in this source book. It was worth it to read this book for the comical nature of the bad stuff, but also these couple of gems. So, let's review, of course. As we mentioned earlier, Baba Yaga erected the Shadow Curtain, which is this sort of supernatural barrier which strengthens the gauntlet at many locations and really severely affects the cairns of many of the Garou and prevents travel of mages and others through the Umbra. And makes spellcasting, let's say, and interaction with spirits much more difficult. This is actually a pretty interesting idea. It's a cool kind of foil. You know, the Iron Curtain has fell, but now the Shadow Curtain has been erected, which still cuts off these supernatural creatures from the other cultures across the world, and really just keeps up their isolation. It's also kind of a cool catastrophe that you can have in your game. Maybe not in Russia, but you could even set this in a local city of your game, which does not affect the mortal world overtly, but still is an issue, an environmental issue that your characters have to face. It can also, the idea of the Shadow Curtain really could affect many spirits, and in the context of Werewolf the Apocalypse or Werewolf the Forsaken, could throw them into turmoil, which causes a lot of issues, minor issues really, that the player characters will need to resolve.
Well, Mike, it actually does say in here that the spirits aren't hampered at all, and in fact, as long as the Shadow Curtain exists, spirits can manifest in the real world.
Do you hear this facepalm just happening right here? Oh, okay. Well, they can manifest in the real world. Great. That's good.
Yeah, and that's kind of dumb, but it also could be kind of interesting in a sense that, like, you know, you could have a Werewolf Chronicle where a Bane has forced its way through, and is, like, you know, like killing people to drain their essence, and the werewolves have to hunt him down and stop it. And then it's like, you know, holy crap, there's a spirit in the real world. What the hell is this doing here?
So you're saying there could be Soviet werewolf Ghostbusters? Is that what I'm hearing? Because that's what I think I'm hearing.
That is exactly what you're hearing.
That is exactly what I said, Bryce.
Okay. All right. No, we're getting a good idea here. All right. So, Chigg, your cleaners from our ideas for the Void Engineers could definitely go to Soviet Russia.
Absolutely, they could and should. Because unless I'm mistaken, the Shadow Curtain stayed up for, I don't know, until Baba Yaga got killed, right?
Well, but Baba Yaga woke up in 1990, so after Soviet Russia, technically. Just you can modify it for your own game.
It came up in about 92 and lasted until she died in 2000.
Oh, so that's not very long. That's not long enough for, like, you know, horrible dragons to start walking the earth or anything fun like that. I mean, I guess. They're laying there under the earth, apparently, these sleeping Zmai. So, were any of the Zmai made out of marshmallow?
No.
Well, there goes my campaign idea. I'm out.
All right. Sorry, man. And there's actually another cool idea in Rage Across Russia, which is this idea that different cairns are actually being depleted of their energy and their access to the Umbral world. So, really, their cairn rating is decreasing over time. This is frightening for the Garou, and it's again a sort of a supernatural catastrophe, which does not really affect the mortal world. You don't need to make it as overt as saying that, oh, Baba Yaga is causing this. You need to kind of keep it a mystery, in my opinion. It could be other Garou. It could be caused by mages. And really, if you want to have sort of a not really globe-trotting, but region-trotting crossover chronicle, you could provide a lot of interesting investigation ideas for a Werewolf the Apocalypse game, as your player characters look around and try to figure out exactly what's going on and what's affecting all of these different cairns. And of course, if there's a couple cairns that are not affected by it, then, well, maybe they're going to start pointing fingers at those ones. In addition to that, there's another kind of cool idea which is hinted at, but the sourcebook unfortunately does not go into too much. And that's discussing the different cultural conflicts amongst the Get of Fenris in this region. So, of course, you have the Get of Fenris from different cultural and anthropological origins. So the Germanic ones, the more Slavic Get, and then the Finno-Ugric from the north. And they're all now living in the same region, even some Get of Fenris that came in following the German invasion in the Second World War. And their different stances and politics really put them into conflict, which can cause some very interesting infighting within that specific tribe, and issues that perhaps other tribes are going to use in their own sort of political struggles in the region.
No, I like that too. I mean, it's nice to see the Get of Fenris actually get some nuance to them beyond, being the super strong Germanic fight tribe. Because there really is a lot of interesting history to the tribe and to Germans, and like you said, the Finno-Ugric, the Slavic, all those things, all those cultures are a part of the Get of Fenris, and then they all get shoved into Russia at once.
Right. So, I think that's most of what I've got here for good things. Matt, what do you have? Got any other things that really stood out to you as kind of cool ideas to throw into your game?
The concept of Baba Yaga as a big evil entity itself is somewhat interesting because, you just have the Guru in Soviet Russia, the Berlin Wall comes down, things are getting better, everything's going great, all of a sudden. And it's not really it wasn't really a sudden thing. It's just ever so slowly the shadow curtain came down. They couldn't get outside of Russia's penumbra, and a lot of them aren't even really aware that Baba Yaga exists beyond the rumors of there being this beast in the night that is causing all of these horrible things. And the Zemei start walking around, and I think that is a very interesting setting. It's just that everything they did to get to that point was not that great.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful point. And we shouldn't really short sell the book itself in that regard. There is a kind of interesting setting that's been created. One of the cool things is that because, and the book blames communism, which is kind of funny, because Russia was somewhat isolated from the growth of Western culture, Pentex doesn't really exist in Rage Across Russia, which is kind of a cool difference from in many other Werewolf games. You, of course, can find now, in the time period that this book was written, there's some kind of satellite entities for Pentex that have begun springing up or that have been bought out by Pentex. But for the most part, that's not too big of a deal in this setting, which is kind of a cool and different thing you can do.
That gives an interesting plot point then with the the fall of communism and everything to deal with how Pentex starts to infiltrate the new capitalism capitalist run economy of this new Russia. That'd be quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if they'd waited a couple more years before releasing this book, they really could have highlighted that and jumped into it. One of the unfortunate things, and they actually have a sidebar discussing this, is that, there's a lot of crazy, very unstable political situation in Russia at the time that they're actually writing this book. I'm pretty sure they stopped the presses just to add in a couple lines about Boris Yeltsin shelling and sieging Parliament to the book before it was finally printed. There's a lot of things going on, and this might not have been the best time to try to write a present day Russia book. But cool, there we go. Rage Across Russia. That was quite a journey reading through that book and reviewing it here. I understand that there's a little bit of negativity with it overall. But I think we did definitely highlight some really cool stuff that you can use and some cool ideas. And I definitely recommend that if you have this book or want to pick it up, just kind of, you don't really need to read through everything, but there's some cool stuff that we highlighted that could definitely be a benefit for Werewolf the Apocalypse games. So, with that, I think it's time to move on over to the secret frequency.
It's under the stairs.
It was in 1919, the height of the Bolshevik Revolution, that Lieutenant Fyodor Oturovich Isenbach and his Russian White Army unit looted the old Kurakin's mansion near the modern-day Kharkiv. Amongst the centuries-old art and Slavic cultural pieces, Isenbach discovered a series of carved wooden planks joined by rope. It was a strange cultural piece, inscribed with, to him, illegible early Cyrillic text. Though rotten and warped with age, Isenbach took the planks, intent on keeping his soldiers from burning them as firewood. After the defeat of the White Army, Isenbach fled to Belgrade in 1923, where he attempted to sell the planks to the Belgrade Library and Museum. The museum, of course, was uninterested in these planks, and writing they couldn't understand. In 1925, Isenbach settled in Brussels and began to translate the planks with his friend, Yuri Murlyobov. The inscribed writing was inconsistent. Different letters, grammar patterns, and sizes of the text indicated numerous writers. Stranger still, the grammar indicated writings of different regions, Polish phrases, Serbian anecdotes, precise references to the Eurasian steppes. These planks must have traveled throughout Eastern Europe. The translation itself took them 15 years to photograph and transcribe. The rough translation revealed part historical chronicle, part religious text. The assembled translated book, dubbed the Book of Veles after its opening sentence on the 16th plank, remains one of the only written accounts of Slavic prehistory, before the Varangian rule, and the only text describing pagan Slavonic pantheon in detail. Before Isenbach could publish his findings, though, he was killed in the 1941 German siege of Brussels, and the original planks were lost. It was not until 1957 that Professor A. Kurenkov published an English translation of Murlyobov's transcriptions in the Firebird magazine. The work was met instantly with disdain by academics. Soviet linguists called it a forgery, citing the varied regional linguistic patterns. Soviet historians attacked the book for supporting the Norman Varangian migration theory, as opposed to the latest anti-European Kurgan theory that they've been developing. In our world, the Book of Veles was ultimately become a work read only by the curious and pagan spiritualists. However, in the world of darkness, that needn't be entirely the case. The Book of Veles, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and maybe even the Book of Mormon, and similar texts can be provide a number of story ideas for your game. A common trope in Mage the Awakening is forgotten grimoires and false histories. However, rather than being a book from an alternate Earth history, perhaps someone is trying to rewrite the history of Earth, beginning with the Book of Veles. And for what purpose? Perhaps the Seers of the Throne wish for a world where fewer cultural differences exist between Western and Eastern Europe, a world with no Cold War and a world government they could easily influence. In addition to being an infantry officer, Fyodor Isenbach was also a well-known painter. Perhaps the Book of Veles is in fact a forgery, but one based on the inspiration of his changeling muse. A troll might inspire him with true tales of his Slavic ancestors, a history he sought to capture on these wooden planks. This glamour-infused work of art has now been lost following the capture of Brussels, but perhaps your motley of changelings need to recover the planks and harness its glamour to save another soul. But by doing so, they destroy the entire history of a people. In Dark Ages Fae, the Book of Veles might actually record numerous contracts between inhuman trueborn Fae of Eastern Europe and the mortal populace. Perhaps recovering the planks will allow the player characters to find a weakness in their opponents, the summer fae Perun, whom the Slavic populace worship as a god of thunder. Whew. So what do you guys think? Any other ideas about the Book of Veles? Nope? Alright, I can give you guys another idea. Even just from like a practical standpoint, wooden planks are going to last longer than paper. So this can just give you a general idea of a way that your perhaps Mage the Ascension characters could stumble across some interesting rotes and magical materials and alchemical information from the times of Dark Ages Mage.
Maybe. You say it's written in Cyrillic, right?
Correct.
You said that?
Yep.
Okay, that means that at the oldest, it's 1175 years. Cyrillic didn't exist before 940 or so, when Cyril went to Russia to spread the Orthodoxy.
Correct.
So it can't. I mean, sure, it could be written down, stuff that was oral tradition for thousands and thousands of years, but at best, the wood itself is, can't predate that. So it can't be, some primordial book handed down from the creator of Russia, him or herself. I do like your idea of it being literal fairy tales from changelings trying to inspire or save people, though. That's a fun one. I like that.
Yeah, I thought you might like it, Chigg.
So from a werewolf point of view, there is a lot of stuff touched on in Rage Across Russia about trying to restore humanity to a more kind of nature worship and, worshipping Gaia and the moon. And so maybe it doesn't look like Cyrillic because a werewolf drew it, like clawing into the wood, trying to create this false text or true text, depending on, the way that the religion should be as opposed to the way that it is now.
Yep, absolutely. There's definitely a lot of stuff you can do with werewolves in general. And, Chigg, mirroring your point about the time period in which the Cyrillic text was introduced, I don't know, time travel? Time travel, Chigg?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
sure, absolutely. It's clearly been dropped off by a whatchamacallit, Verbena neo-pagan master or mistress of the time sphere, who went back to convert people to the one true religion.
Trying to create a entire country of sleepers for themselves?
Absolutely. If everybody has this as the background radiation of their belief, then that makes the Verbena and possibly the Dream Speakers that much more coincidental in their magic.
I was going to suggest that because of the date of it and the nature of it, you could obviously tie it in with I think there's a particular bloodline. I'm just having a look within the Ordo-Dracal. So you could possibly, with the region it's in and to do with the Slavic area. I'm just trying to think which bloodline it is. Is it them? But so because of where it's dated, it's before the true rise of the Ordo-Dracal. But it could, its religious influence could be still felt within that covenant. There is a particular Ordo-Dracal bloodline which is more. There we go.
It sounds. I mean, I'm not the World of Darkness.
Not the Vedma, the Simanu, who are a order of kind of an offshoot of the Lancare Sanctum, but within the Ordo-Dracal, and they're a bloodline back when Dracula was mortal. So this book could well be considered a religious text for that order, and perhaps contain Thaban sorcery, which is not known to the larger Lancare Sanctum covenant, but is actually practiced within the Ordo-Dracal.
Do you really think that Ordo Dracul is the best fit? I mean, it sounds almost what's the Circle of the Crone?
Well,
Does it say if Veles is a male name or a female name? I'm not good on my my Russian gender.
No,
name.
it's just it says to Veles, this book we devote. Veles apparently is a god.
Oh well,
Right.
probably not Circle of the Crone then.
well, remember the Circle of Crone is not. They're not Wiccans and are not any particular thing. They're vampires that create modern cults and cobble stuff together. There is no ancient cult. I mean, it's based upon the idea of the idea that there's this ongoing secret society that's this witch cult. So you can obviously use this as the source of particular cults in that region, that they use it as their own kind of reference text. And while if it's a male god, that doesn't mean it can't still be used within their particular flavour of the Circle of the Crone.
I thought they were a real witch cult thing. Shows what I knew.
As long as you don't want to read too much into it, because apparently Veles might have been a Nordic corruption of Priapus.
Oh yeah,
Who's Priapus?
the god of boners.
Yeah, the god of, he had a perpetual.
No, really, that's why it's called priapism.
Yeah, he had a perpetual massive erection. Like he had to have a scaffolding built to hold it.
Oh. Oh. Oh.
Yeah.
Probably should have researched that before doing this secret frequency. Well, I was playing around with some ideas as I was reading this, but I couldn't really figure out how to get it to work. And in Hunter the Reckoning, especially in the core book, there's these kind of ideas that maybe the hunters, the imbued, I should say, are actually kind of the modern day incarnations of the old mythic heroes. And I was having a lot of trouble figuring out how to actually get this to link up. But now I'm actually speaking about this. I got some ideas. The Rage Girls Russia actually has this kind of cool side idea about the Borgatyrs. They're the heroic knights of Prince Vladimir Rurikid. And, well, those guys were the more Nordic Varangians, but let's just go with it. We'll just go with it, guys. And it could be that this Book of Veles is a way to link the modern-day imbued to such mythic figures as those Borgatyrs in the Slavic regions, or perhaps in the United Kingdom of the British Isles, link them to King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, or other mythic figures of different regions, like, I don't know, Asterix and Obelix in France.
I had an idea. Just looking at over this, right? So, Veles is also potentially so I'm actually just looking at the wiki now. A god of the underworld and of death. So what if this is purely it's not quite a forgery, but it is a constructed religion. So what if it's a Geist from Geistinitas? What if it's a crew's mythology?
Oh,
that they've created?
Yeah, that's a great idea for this, and that could explain why it's sort of just hobbled together over the years. It's been something that they grew and developed as they lived throughout the time.
It also explains why Veles is also related. I mean, I'm just looking over this. There's some connotations with Carnival and Halloween, so that's kind of like the Geist flesh fairs. God of magic and musicians, trickster gods. Yeah, okay. God of cattle and wealth. The other thing I was going to go with humorous, going back to the phallus imagery. What if it's a weird book that basically Veles, or this imagery, I will just say, is actually related to the Thyrsus watchtower in Mage the Awakening. So they're literally relating this god and the phallic imagery to one of the watchtowers in the supernal realm of spirits and beasts.
Interesting. I like it. All right, cool. So is that it for this secret frequency?
Yeah, I think that may well be it.
All right, excellent. So with that, let's move on over to the new World of Darkness.
World of Darkness 2.0.
So we're covering in this segment, we're going to be discussing what Dave Brookshaw and obviously his fellow writers have been spoiling for us in the open development blog for Mage the Awakening. So Mage the Awakening, of course, is the third New World of Darkness game. It is about playing mages. In many respects, Mage the Awakening is about mages having awoken to magic, looking to ascend. So in that respect, it's more about trying to ascend and about ascension. Whereas, because they're really performing magic, and there isn't a thing like paradigm in this game. So compared to Mage the Ascension is really about awakening from your paradigm to just use magic in all its glory. So there's a lot of stuff on the blog that covers spoilers and samples. So they look at each of the paths. Some of the paths have been altered. They've also adjusted some of the rules. Obviously, they're making use of the new God Machine rules. And certain things have been revised. And of course, in the publishing history of Mage the Awakening, certain things have been revised. I think some of the later books, like Imperial Mysteries and books like Seers of the Throne and so forth, some of the books that came later in the line really did retcon quite a number of things, such as Atlantis. So where do we begin? I think the big thing is, maybe there's a few things they're now putting quite front and center with this. So the mages of Mage the Awakening, at least the player character mages generally, will be members of one of the four orders and a fifth order, which is a modern order. And the focus of Mage the Awakening politically has changed a bit. So they're making the orders seem more prominent, and they've downplayed the concilium. So the concilium is basically a gathering of mages, which they've kind of now placed firmly as being kind of more like a kind of a judicial kind of organization for a particular region, while it's the orders themselves which will be, dishing out commands to novice mages and in charge of their training, depending upon which order your character has aligned to. Obviously, as I said, the myth of Atlantis is now firmly more of a myth. It is a name, it is a symbol, it is not a real place, and in fact, there may well have been many different Atlantises in the world before time, before the fall. And of course, one thing that they're really upfront about, which was made clear in the Seers of the Throne book and Imperial Mysteries, is the very nature of the Abyss. So in the Mage core book, they made the whole thing that mages try to ascend from our world, not only from our world, but like from the world, to ascend to the thrones of magic and reality, the supernal realms, and control them, and thus control reality. And in doing so, the celestial ladder that allowed them to do that cracked, shattered, and created the Abyss. Yeah, that's been retconned. That was retconned in the Seers of the Throne book anyway. And the fact is, this war between mages did occur, and the winners of the war, the exarchs, they created the Abyss as a way to control the world, because they gain power from the people that exist within the fallen world. So the Abyss is very much a means of control. And I think that's a very important thing to play up in the second edition, because it really pushes forward how the Exarchs, and thus their servants in the fallen world, the Seers of the Throne, are distinctly not the technocracy. They really aren't. Mike, you had some initial comments, and then I guess we can, and anyone else have any questions, then we can maybe look at some of the more interesting blog posts in the Mage the Awakening development.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we can just to set the scene a little bit and kind of, get people into the mood of what they're doing with Mage 2nd edition here. I think it would be really good to just kind of actually just read directly what Dave Brookshaw said about the lie, because that's really the central tenet of this entire setting and everything that's going on with the people, with the characters that you're interacting with and that you're playing as.
Okay, well, I'll read through that because that was the last thing I commented on. So, shall we delve into that now, and then we can pick up some other points after that. Because this really is the crux of the setting, and I think really drives home how the Seers of the Throne and the Exarchs are all a shower of bastards.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the lie is central to all the people that are living in the fallen world and that are basically imprisoned there, that are caged there. And they're caged there not physically per se, but really emotionally and mentally.
Spiritually as well.
Spiritually, yes. And that's due to this aspect that's called...
Yeah. Shall I go through this? Because you've spoken a lot already. The universe isn't only the supernal, defining concepts, and the fallen, embodying them. When mages use their sight, they frequently see signs of corruption, warped or nonsensical symbols infecting the world. If the symbols of the supernal realms represents everything that's true, providing meaning to the platonic concepts that the fallen world embodies, then the abyss is everything that can't be. Every so often, part of the fallen world becomes so overwhelmed by the poisonous anti-symbols of the abyss that impossibility breaks through to become real, an intruding paradox that damages the world around it. On rare occasions, these intrusions happen naturally. More often, mages overextend themselves or fall to a moment's weakness when casting spells, accidentally allowing something of the abyss through. Both are drops in the ocean, though, compared to the lie. The lie is a curse, a spiritual affliction affecting every human soul. It closes the eyes of humanity to their potential, makes them ignore or rationalize away the supernatural, and suppresses magic when their souls near it. Deep in his soul, every human knows that he is powerless and insignificant, without the ability to affect the universe's laws. It's all pervasive, written into the fabric of reality. No matter how confident or successful the person, the lie is always there, worming away at her, telling her she's only human, as if there's anything only about it. The lie is the combination of harsh supernal truths, the symbols of tyranny, oppression, slavery, and control, and are the paradoxical energies of the abyss, making sleepers simultaneously vulnerable to those occult symbols' influence, while also masking their influence from them. When confronted with a supernal, whether it's rare natural manifestations or more often obvious magical effects caused by spells, the abyss in a sleeper witness souls lulls them, forcing them to forget. Other supernatural occurrences don't provoke the abyss that obviously, but the lie still has a subtle effect, predisposing the inhabitants of the world of darkness to silence, putting the thought of the monsters among them out of their mind. Some people, especially those with minor magical talents themselves, are free of this quiescence, but are still affected by the greater lie, still unable to see past the fallen world, but able to remember magic clearly. Mages describe these people as sleepwalkers, not sleepers, but not awakened. Mages see through the lie when they awaken. Each of the 5 paths reveals a facet of it. They're still human, still part of the fallen world, but they can look past it, guided by their paths. Often awakening is triggered by a confrontation with the lie, a crisis where the mage refuses to accept it. The lie is too elaborate and too finely targeted to be an accident according to the orders. There's a guiding intelligence behind it. Mages know that some symbols have a semblance of life. They summon supernal entities, pulling them from the supernal world into the fallen. Most are content to let mages come to them, but the occult symbols bound up in the lie are evidence that something deep in the unseen supernal realms is actively trying to cripple humanity's ability to perceive beyond the fallen world. More than trying, it's succeeding. What that enemy is depends upon the tale, but the Diamond and the Seers use the Greek word for rule from the outside. This word is exarch. So, yeah, that's basically the Mage setting in kind of a nutshell. It kind of gives the overwhelming kind of feeling of what the tone and what mages are fighting against.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's really one half a sentence to zone in on here. And Chigg and Matt, I want you guys to pay special attention to this. The lie is a combination of harsh, supernal truths, the symbols of tyranny, oppression, slavery, and control. All right, that's what you guys in this game, as a player characters, are fighting against. Doesn't that make you feel like a goddamn hero? All the terrible things about this world are what you're fighting against, what you're trying to fix and solve. But there's your hubris.
The other interesting thing I was going to bring out, I think, is a very powerful thing in this, which I think really shows how this isn't Mage the Ascension. So in Mage the Ascension, paradox is because your view of what reality should be is coming up against the consensual reality, and thus a paradox occurs. Whereas really what paradox here is when we find it, is that the lie is a paradox in itself. It is the magic which is linked to tyranny, oppression, slavery, control, and all of those symbols all together stopping humans doing magic. But at the same time, it hides itself. The paradox there is that it is magic acting upon humanity in such a grand scale that it is all, but it also hides itself, and there's a huge paradox in that way, because it also stops other magic occurring.
Yeah, this is a serious game, and you know what, Dave Brookshaw, just take my money.
Yeah, yeah. Other interesting things, I think, Mike. I'm just going to try and find the post that's on my pocket here. I'm trying to find the right post because there's so many here. Is that they've also made some distinctions about what the fallen world is, what the supernal world is, and so forth. So the fallen world is what you exist within, and so the supernal world, the supernal realms, lies simultaneously within our world. It is just the symbols that we cannot see. So it's the classic, we're the goldfish in the bowl. We can see the shadows of waves above us, but we can't see the air that is making the ripples on the water. And that is what the supernal world is. Whereas the supernal realms are the places beyond that, which power both the supernal world and the fallen world. So that's what Mage Sight essentially allows you to do, is to see past the fallen world and see the symbols and see the connections and see the magic in the world. And that also means, see the meaning of the lie, see these paradoxical symbols that are within our reality preventing magic. The other thing is they've removed the distinction between different types of magic. So you normally had you had vulgar magical, you had the different types of magic, and one would always cause paradox and the other one didn't, or it didn't easily invoke paradox. they've removed that distinction. There's just magic. And depending upon your skilling magic, so depending upon the highest number of dots a spell requires and the number of dots you have in the ruling arcana of that spell, you get a number of reaches. So reaches is a new term within Mage 2nd edition. And so reaching is about trying to draw more power into your spell and do more things. So reaching is like, rather than the spell affecting you, it affects someone that you touch, or it affects someone that you can see, or if you've got sympathetic magic mixed in, someone that you have a picture for. But of course, you can only reach so far, and then as you reach further, you will begin to incur paradox dice. And that creates a dice pool, which is going to come into conflict with your wisdom. And so, obviously, that's how paradox works. So, and of course, you get more in that dice pool, depending upon whether you've got witnesses to your magic, or, you know, whether you're at a verge where magic is easier, or you're at somewhere which is an abyssal verge where paradox is pretty much a given. So I kind of like that removal of the distinction between different types of magic, just simply because, again, it pushes Mage the Awakening further away from Mage the Ascension. We're dropping certain terminology, which is a holdover from the old World of Darkness. Anything else we want to pick up on those ones, Mike?
No, I'm not too familiar with the entire magic system of Mage the Awakening, so I can't comment on it too much.
Essentially, you have your Gnosis, which is your power pool. And then, depending upon the type of magic you were doing, it would either rely on particular skills, if you're using rotes, or it would just rely on your arcanum. So, depending upon... So, in other words, you would generally get a larger dice pool for doing a rote, because you could draw in more easily, more dots, because you'd be drawing from one or more skills, compared to doing creative thaumaturgy. The main thing is that you've got this idea of reach, which is almost kind of like a condition for magic spells. Like, you've got so many reaches that you can have, and each one can be assigned a sort of condition, whether it's affecting, is a time-based effect, or you're trying to change how long that is, or so forth. The other thing actually that's really important is they've removed what they call speed bumps in the magic system. So what this means is that before, if say you were doing magic that involved forces, you could only influence certain types of energies, certain types of forces, at a certain ranking of forces. They said, sod that. That's gone. And similarly, those sort of speed bumps are removed for other arcana. So if you've got the arcana of life, you can affect any form of life. You don't need to have rank 5 in life to start affecting, or rank 3 to affect multicellular life. The question is more to do with how difficult, not that you need to be a high enough rank in life. So I think I think they're trying to push magic to be that people try and use magic more. That was always one of the things with Mage the Ascension. It was meant to be a game about magic, and also it was really hard to do magic. Let's see if I can bring this up. Is this about... the other thing is they've really expanded upon and renamed some things. So they've expanded upon the idea of magical tools and focuses. Well, they had magical tool, and they wanted to avoid the term focus from Mage the Ascension, especially with Mage 20 being out. So they've now got the term called yantra. So yantra is a mystic pattern, when meditated upon, keys you into the divine. And an instrument is also a way of doing this, but instrument is the term used by the Free Council. So again, these are things which allow you to create a symbolic correspondence with the supernal realms. And of course that means elements of a yantra to a mage may not have the same symbolic meaning to another mage. So, say a gun may mean forces to one mage, but it may mean death to another. Things like that. And of course, that means yantras and so forth. These you can only have certain number of yantras depending upon your gnosis rating, and then also you get specific ones depending upon which path you follow and which order you are a member of. So if you're a member of the adamantine arrow, yantras that involve martial arts and the use of weapons come very easily to you. So that hasn't really changed hugely. I think they've just better defined things, and a lot of this better defining things purely comes out of the fact that you've now got the God Machine Chronicles rule set, which has conditions, and it has a lot more about dice, about how you add modifiers to dice pools. I'm still trying to find the thing about reach. Mike, is there a particular post, another blog post that you want to pick up on?
I mean, the interesting one that stuck out to me, of course, was the Atlantis blog post.
Yeah.
In particular, I don't know if we want to talk about that right now.
Well, we can talk about it while I'm looking for another one. But as I said, Atlantis has been downplayed a great deal.
Yes. I guess you could say downplayed. So the major difference is that, well, first off, he starts off by saying that they're only probably going to use the word Atlantis like once in the book. And that's the fact that this mythical place in other society that may or may not have existed in our world, it's not going to be agreed upon by different cultures and sects. That's going to be an interesting thing to see in the Dark Era's section for Mage, is when these Greek, Persian, and Eurasian mages all meet up, is how their understanding of the world doesn't really jive, doesn't link up to explain their own prehistory. So they kind of change things around to make it far less certain. There's not going to be a chapter in the book that says, this is Atlantis, this is how everything worked. There's going to be an appendix which explains the kind of controversial prehistories of mages, and the different debates that go on. Because what we actually saw with Mage the Awakening, as books were released, is a sort of a deconstruction of the universe itself. The original core book kind of set things in stone, but as things moved on, as more books were released, there was a sort of holes and leaks began to appear in the dam, essentially, and you started to see that things don't really work out here. It doesn't really make sense. Why are we finding these ruins that we can't place in particular time periods, and it should not exist in this space?
Yeah, they I think that started with, like, was it it's not Secrets of the... Is it Secrets of the Ruined Temple, or I can't remember exactly.
Yes,
but
that's the one.
That introduced various, locations, and that's a really big, important point. Actually, is that within Mage the Awakening, is that loads of these ancient sites that date back to the time before the world, and you can't date them. Time magic or carbon dating means nothing. You can't tie these things together, and it means you can kind of almost get a very kind of Lovecraftian feel to these ancient locations. I guess it more easily allows you to insert the God Machine into it. Like, these are leftovers of the God Machine from before, or maybe they're the leftovers of the world before the God Machine screwed it all up. And of course, I'm sure Dave Brookshaw has some answer of how he would fit the God Machine in. I think he said he did, so that'll be quite interesting. So the other important thing with the Atlantis myth is that they're very clear to deconstruct it, because it's a very Western myth based upon the ideas of how did, like in South America, oh, well, how do we explain how these ancient sites with these ziggurats and everything could be created by a bunch of not white people, savages? So, there's a lot of work in that appendix to also kind of deconstruct it and make Atlantis less about kind of appropriation of other people's cultures and more about how weird the world actually is and how there are many different Atlantises and they're not all the same. Moving on, maybe, the one thing they've done to paths is also further expand them. And when I say expand them, expand their definition. So each path in Mage the Awakening is assigned two arcana, two of the arcana. And each arcanum, you get they're assigned one which is the higher one, which is more conceptual, and one which is a lower one. So, for example, a Masterclass Mage is favored arcanum are mind and space, because space is a construct of the mind. Death and matter are linked with the Morris. Prime and forces are linked with Obramos. Acanthus is time and fate, and Thyrsus is spirit and life. What they've done to further kind of define those paths, so they're not just defined by the arcanum they're linked to, is to kind of assign almost not really a virtue and vice, but they're at least two concepts that also bring them into that create a paradox almost. So, for example, the Acanthus are about choice and consequences. Masagos are about transgression and confrontation. The Moros are about permanence and transition. The Obramos are about power and command. And Thyrsus are about boundaries and intercession. So again, they're really kind of just expanding these. And other than that, I don't think the paths have changed too much other than the Moros. So in light of things like Book of Spirits, which came out maybe halfway through everything that's gone before for New Order Darkness, and of course Book of the Dead for Geist and for World of Darkness in general, Changeling as well. They've rebalanced a few things. So particularly for the Moros, they generally were played. It was seen within the community that were generally played as either being alchemists or necromancers, not both. And so they've really tried to push that path more towards being alchemists than necromancers. They still dabble with ghosts, and of course their powers and death magic as an arcanum has also been re-examined in light of the excellent material in Book of the Dead. But there's been a bit of rebalancing there, which I don't think is a bad thing. I don't think the Moros should just be de facto necromancers. That'd be quite boring. Because any path can be, any mage from any path can be a necromancer. It's just kind of the flavour and their approach to manipulating the dead. The other interesting thing that has been spoiled a little bit is some of the other realms. So, of course, another book which came out, I can't remember how long ago, but it wasn't too, again, kind of about that halfway point in New World of Darkness releases, was Inferno, which covers the lower depths. So the lower depths now is, for Mage, means anything that is like the fallen world, but is also lacking, note the key word here, lacking, a certain part, is lacking the influence of one or more of the arcana. So that's quite interesting, I find. So within the places that have now been deemed lower depths are the Inferno, which we know contains demons, which are not the same as demons from Demon the Descent, and are not the same as Pandorans or Kushilim which are also, well, they're not even demons, they're angels, which are different to the angels from Demon the Descent. But other places that are now deemed lower depths are wherever the Strix come from, and the Duat of Mummy the Curse. So I found that really interesting. That these are now deemed. These are properly within the World of Darkness cosmology. These are lower depths. That also means the Duat, being a lower depth, is not part of the underworld, because the underworld is the great below, and the very bottom of the underworld, and the domains are not lower depths. They are places so deep that you come across Chthonian entities that were never born. So it's interesting to have the Duat as one of the lower depths, and it's interesting to say that the lower depths lack one or more of the Arcana, because that kind of then explains why mummies have to go looking for relics to send Sekhem into the Duat. So is the Duat lacking in Prime? So yeah, that's quite interesting. What else?
Chris, you're breaking up. You're talking about the lower depths, but you're breaking up on my recording.
Am I?
You're starting to come back. You're starting to come back. All right.
Okay.
I do like that because they're building it from the ground up, basically, and they know that there's going to be multiple supernatural subspecies out there, that they are tying it all together a bit more cohesively than the old World of Darkness. I do like that.
It is really, really cohesive. I think that's just it's just a case of the fact that they had a good almost 10 years of running all these games off the same core system, and that core system is the core system for all these second editions, and Mage now has all of the other games to go, well, you're a perfect antagonist. Let's how do we incorporate you into Mage the Awakening? And it's always been that, and it was always easy to introduce other antagonists into Mage that weren't mages. Ghosts were easy, demons are easy, and it's quite clear, and it was pretty much said without saying too much, that a team up between some mages and some demons is completely playable and would be very, very interesting, because you've got one group which the demons have their powers which literally make use of the fundamental arcane supernatural elements of the world that people can't see, while mages are more like hackers and just do what they want, and hopefully the world doesn't smack them on the ass. So that's really cool. There's a post up that goes through each of the type of antagonistic type of mages. So the Mad, the Banishers, Liches, and Reapers, and of course a bit on the Tremere and Scelesti. So they're all coming back. We learn that the Scelesti apparently make use of yantras that have been corrupted by an anti-watchtower called a ziggurat, which is news to me. Maybe I didn't read that in Left-Handed Paths. Left-Handed Paths was one of the books towards the end of the release. So again, something that Dave Brookshaw has said with regard to a lot of these is that they don't have enough room in the core book to go through a lot of this stuff, understandably so. But because the Left-Handed Path book was one of the last source books to come out for the previous edition, it mostly won't be one of the first things to be revised. But because that material in there was doing so much of a retcon to Mage, and thus is core to the new edition, it means that Dave Brookshaw is just going to put out a errata for how you can make use of those antagonists under the new rule set. So Dave Brookshaw is a god for doing that. For just going, yeah, here's how you make them playable. Use the old book for now. Yes, that's quite exciting. I'm still trying to find the post on the actual how spells work, so I can just go through that. I was going to say about paradox then. So this is a really big thing, so I can expand upon. So as I said, there's no concept of coincidental and vulgar magic as you had in Ascension. There's no concept of like covert or vulgar magic. So no spell automatically risks paradox. I think that's a really important thing in this then, is that magic, by saying no spell automatically risks paradox, that's basically telling you, both in the setting fluff and mechanically, that the world of darkness should have magic in it. Mages should be doing magic. And it's that it is their need to reach across the abyss to the supernal realms to further increase the ability of their spells, which risks paradox, because that reaching is what draws the abyss in. So it's kind of like, you're trying to it's like having a layer of oil, a layer of water, and then something really denser than water, and trying to put a small tube through those layers to get to the really dense stuff and bring it into the upper layer. But at the same time, you're going to draw some water through, and you're going to screw up whatever you're doing. That's kind of, to me, what magic kind of is in Mage the Ascension. And again, depending upon how many sleepers are there, the paradox dice pool will get a 9 again or an 8 again on the dice. And you can contain paradox by, using your wisdom score to cancel it out. Again, wisdom is similar to integrity or humanity for vampires. Integrity being for mortals. But that also means that for the wisdom score is about a mage's willingness to cause to perform acts that cause hubris. That means then that petty theft or even murder will not necessarily mean a mage's wisdom score goes down, which is quite interesting. And again, I think that's really important because it's about pushing these systems further away from the classic World of Darkness Victorian morality system, where doing a bad thing makes you mad.
So they're divorcing the hubris system from that hierarchy of sins. Does using a spell to commit murder still count as a hubristic act, or...?
It depends. It gives an example that using a spell for planned murder doesn't cause as much hubris as using a spell in a moment of panic to murder someone. Because one is about pure control, and the other one is not.
Okay.
There's a whole blog post on this to go into it more, and obviously I'm giving the abridged kind of notes on it, but it is different, and they say that that makes wisdom more similar to 2nd edition vampires' humanity than say how integrity will be more similar to say harmony for werewolves in Forsaken. So again, that's quite interesting, because again, humanity in vampire is not about whether you're doing bad things or not, it's whether you're doing the right things to appear human, and whether you give a shit whether you appear human or not. And Mage, I think, is in the same things. It's about whether you give a damn or not that the magic you're doing is being seen by others, hurting others, how it hurts others, and whether it incurs paradox or not.
Well, I think
Interesting.
they also made some changes to harmony as well, because that was a common complaint in among at least first edition Werewolf the Forsaken players, is that harmony really wasn't how in tune your wolf and human were, it's how wolfy are you.
Yeah, exactly. I think what you'll definitely see in, I think Stu Wilson said this ages ago when I read it. Harmony will, whereas humanity, the higher humanity you are, the more human you look. The lower humanity you are, the more vampiric you are. Integrity is about is really a measure of post-traumatic stress. Harmony for second edition Werewolf will be more about the higher it is, the more human, the lower it is, more werewolf. And so actually the best place to be is mostly in the middle. And I can see that being the same sort of, that being the basis for how Geist the Sin Eaters will be, because you have synergy, and that's about how in balance the human soul is with the Geist that's coexisting in your body. And I can see that also being the basis for Changeling, which was clarity, because obviously if you have high clarity, you have a very difficult time interacting with the hedge and the weird and anything to do with being a changeling. Whereas if you had very low clarity, you don't see the real world. You see the magical fairy tale world and the symbolism and the connections of it within the real world. And
you're also rather dangerous for regular people to be around.
Yeah, because you're also quite freaking insane by regular people's, estimations. So I think that's the core thing here, is that they're not trying to do a one size fits all way of using this ranking, and that's quite evident now in Mage, and is evident in how they're approaching Werewolf. And I like that. It's good. I mean, I like the idea. Like a mage has a very different view on reality. So certain crimes and certain actions to them are not hubristic, because they're not causing paradox, and they're not causing the world to fall apart in certain ways, and in fact actually maybe work towards how the world should be. Yeah. Ooh, do we have any other things to bring up, Mike?
No, I think that's a really good overview of what we've had going on with Mage 2nd Edition. And I think we should head over and maybe discuss some mailbags.
Mm-hmm.
So, we did actually get 2 nice questions for this episode from Michael Jacobson, which I think we should go over right now. So, keeping in the new World of Darkness vein, Michael Jacobson asks, how would mages interact with the God Machine? And this is a pretty big and niggling question for a lot of people when it comes to the newer material.
I think I hinted at that. I think we've hinted at this a few times. So the God Machine and the supernatural abilities of the God Machine's angels, and thus the supernatural abilities of demons, all rely on what can be described as arcane science. So what that means is that the God Machine relies on patterns, and it relies on things being brought together to create an effect. And these things don't make sense to the common person, yet they are mystical and supernatural paranormal events and powers which do not invoke paradox and are part of our world. The question then for mages is why is that, and how can we use them? Because a mage's magic, when a mage uses their tools and uses their yantras and amagios and mudras and all these things that allow them to do magic and to do all that symbolism that allows them to draw down the supernal powers into the fallen realm. A normal magician, a normal magic user, I say magician, but magician, even if he uses those symbols of power, will not get a magical effect because there is such a huge difference between fallen magic and supernal magic, awakened magic. And in a similar way, there is a very big difference between awakened magic and embeds and exploits and what angels are capable of doing and what the God Machine is doing. So there's a lot there. There's mostly some crazy symbolism that is to do with how the God Machine is part of our world. For all we know, the God Machine could be a creation of the Exarchs. It could be the mechanism which powers the Abyss. That's a scary thought. All these actions and everything, it's just so the God Machine can fuel the sleeping curse. And obviously, demons present a very interesting and fun player character type for a cabal of mages to interact with, or a very dangerous foe for the Seers of the Exarch to fight against. Because Seers of the Exarch in Mage 2nd Edition, their order will be presented at the front of the book with all the others, so they are completely playable. They are kind of like the Technocracy in that sense that you can definitely play them and be the kind of walk on the dark side a little. Any ideas with Mage and God Machine?
That's a big change for this series.
It is a big change. Because when I read the Seers of the Throne book, it was just like, oh my god, they make the Technocracy look like a bunch of puppies. They make the Technocracy look like friendly guys. Because at least the point is, again, I just want to reinforce, at least the Technocracy are working towards, in their mind, the benefit of humanity. Right? The Seers of the Exarch don't give a damn about humanity. They want to keep humanity under their heel. They want to divide humanity using various cultures and religions and have humanity fight amongst themselves. They want different countries to be fighting amongst themselves. But there are some of the Exarchs, like the Eye, wants to watch all of humanity, Big Brother style, so they're all under the thumb all at once. And I can't remember which other one wants like a kind of full control of humanity. And then there's the 6th Exarch, the Gate, who may be the one that's tied to the very nature of the Abyss. And ultimately, any member of the Seers of the Throne wants to be granted by the Exarchs the ability to ascend the fallen world and live in the supernal realm. And if that means, selling out humanity and selling out all other mages, even your fellow seers, then so be it. So, comparatively, the Technocracy are really, really nice.
Yep.
Any ideas on Mage and God Machine then? Or is that it for that question?
I think that's it. I'm not really the guy to ask in that regard, unfortunately. But we do have one more mailbag question. And Matt, I need you to wake up here because it's targeted at you.
All right, then.
Okay. What are your ideas on bringing the Lost Tribes and Lost Farah into a Werewolf the Apocalypse game?
Well, I think that was actually a common theme towards the end of the line, that whereas like in Werewolf Revised, there was a very strong undercurrent of redemption, that the way that the werewolves would win the war is by somehow bringing those tribes back. And they actually wrote a supplement that had some ideas on how to do that called Past Lives. that was it was like sort of like a combination supplement / adventure path thing where your pack like actually like traveled back in time sort of to a place where the lost tribes and breeds actually were still around, and there were rules for like meeting the lost tribes and the lost changing breeds and learning gifts from them and like that sort of thing, and sort of reconciling with the tribal spirits and incarnate of those lost breeds and trying to make up for some of that. But there were some ideas for how to bring them back for real. For instance, as far as the White Howlers, there's always that thing about, like, a pure breed 5 Black Spiral looks like a White Howler. So, in theory, that sort of still exists. And their tribal incarnate Lion is still around. He's in Griffin's Brood. So, in theory, if you were somehow able to purify a bunch of Black Spirals and get them back under Lion, then you've got the White Howlers. The Bunyip, again, their tribal totem Nyaglod. I'm not precisely sure how to pronounce that name. He's still around in the Umbra and very angry. And in theory, if you could somehow get, a breeding pair of thylacines from maybe the Deep Umbra or something, you might be able to bring the Bunyip back. The Uktena, not the Uktena, Crotan. Turtle's still around, and a lot of the Crotan kinfolk were absorbed into the Wendigo and Uktena, and I'm fairly certain that, knowing the way the Uktena are, there might just be, a small, sect of purebred of, like, still breeding true Croatan hidden somewhere in one of their little grottos waiting for the end times to come around so they can get pulled back into the fight.
Yeah, actually, that's kind of an interesting point about the Croatan, because really, werewolves, they can choose what tribe they want to be part of, so it's very easy for the Wendigo or the Uktena, whoever they got really absorbed into, to take just some of their tribal practices and kind of integrate them along with the kinfolk that they grabbed.
Right, because it's in that case, it wasn't like that was more of like every living member of the tribe sacrificed them all at once, so that link to the tribal incarnate was severed. Like that's sort of how that was going. But the fact that those kinfolk are still alive and were protected, and the Uktena are masters of mystic ritual, I'm pretty sure if they wanted the Croatan to still be around, they are still around. Now, as far as the Lost Farah, the Lost Breeds, that gets a little bit more interesting because 2 of them were lost during the War of Rage, and one of them was lost for a fairly good reason, because they were basically completely incompatible with, like, continuing to exist, more or less. The Apiz, the Were-Aurochs, like, they were basically so hubristic they could not understand that, the methods that they needed to take to survive. Because they were, like, the tribe of, like, breeders. Like, they chose, like, good breeding partners for everyone. And then, like, it was a really weird niche for them to fill. But, like, they still sort of, like, did that, and then, like, the War of Rage happened. They're like, what? The werewolves aren't listening to us about who they should breed with anymore? Let's go fight the werewolves. And that really didn't work out all that well for them. The other ones are the Gronder, the Wereboars, who were all about cleansing the corruption from places on Earth and keeping Gaia pure. With them, that was more of like the werewolf. Like they just kind of got caught in the crossfighting between the Garou and the other Farah, and so they have, and they do have more of a play, especially now. Like bringing the Gronder back would be a great boon for the werewolves, just because of all of the corruption that is currently afflicting Gaia. And then the last breed of Lost Pharaoh is I am going to butcher this name, the Kamazots, I believe.
Good job.
Awesome. The Werebats, who actually died relatively recently, like as early as like 1890 or something around in there. Like there was the whole the death scream of the last Kamazots echoed through the Umbra kind of thing, but they could still theoretically be around. But there's also it just the generic quest line of heading off into the deep Umbra, because there might be an Umbra realm somewhere where some kinfolk are still around, or where those tribes retreated to try and survive and last beyond the War of Rage, but then they lost their way back, because the Umbra just kind of does that. Like, so there could be, a quest of a tribe to go, venture into the deep Umbra and find the lost breeds and the lost tribes and bring them back into the physical world to assist in the final nights. And the new Changing Breeds 20 book actually has stats for all of them, so there you go.
Nice. All right, cool. Is that it, Matt?
Well, I mean, that's like I said, most of the time, it's in theory you could just have them back, like if you wanted them to just be in a werewolf game, because I mean, the Kamazots kind of exist in a nice niche where they are basically the Korax in a place where there are no crows, or where there are no ravens.
Okay.
So, that's a nice niche. The Gronder are, pretty good because, I mean, while the Garal are doing what they normally do, they're doing it because the Gronder aren't there. So, they still have a place. The Apiz, I'm not really sure where they would fit into a Modern World of Darkness game. But I mean, you could bring them back, and they are, basically were-minotaurs, so that's kind of...
They would fit into the Quiverful movement, I believe.
I have no idea what that is.
Oh, well, then my joke fell very flat. Never mind.
All right. I mean, the only thing I'm going to say about putting in these lost tribes and stuff is that I really see in the typical meta plot of the World of Darkness, if you're going to do something with them, you basically have two options. Either it's got to be very focal to the Chronicle. Your Chronicle is centered around trying to bring back the Kamazots. Or it could just be sort of an offhand comment. This works, I think, pretty well with maybe less experienced players, because they'll be like, oh, there's this Pharaoh called the Apis that this guy knows. Oh, that's cool. And then, weeks or months later, they're reading around, wait, those guys are all supposed to be dead. How did he know one? And that's sort of an offhand comment I think could be pretty well received as well. So that's just my 2 cents right there.
Right, what I was saying is that bringing them back, that would be something that would be, a grand quest of a silver pack. This is a massive world-changing thing that you can do, and would be a major blow struck for the Garou in the War for the Apocalypse. I think they're called, seeking packs, and they're actually, a thing of, and there's a Children of Gaia camp called Seekers of the Lost, that is what they do. Is they search for signs of the lost Pharaoh and try and figure out ways of bringing them back. Not always successfully in one very blatant case, but I won't go over that right now. But there is some precedent for this kind of thing being in a werewolf game, and I totally support it, because that's the kind of epic quest that's really nice to have in a Werewolf Chronicle.
Cool. So I think that's it for the mailbag, and let's just move on out to closing remarks. Matt, do you have a Twitter account if people want to follow you and see what's going on?
Yeah, I do. It's at Irmrith it IRMRITH.
All right, sweet. Cool, and we are, of course, Darker Days Radio. You can check us out at darker-days.org or subscribe to us through iTunes. If you want to get in touch with us, one of the best ways is sending us an email over to darkerdaysradio@gmail.com or dropping us a line either on Facebook at facebook.com/darkerdaysradio or at our Google Plus community, where you can just find us by searching for Darker Days Radio on Google Plus or checking out the link in the show notes. All right, we're good, guys. Anything else? Anything else before we go?
I will plug the Fading Suns blog because it's finally up. So that's fadingsuns.freedonianlabs.cc. Easiest way to find it. Just go on Facebook and find the Fading Suns official, Fading Suns community, and you can from there get to the blog, which is known as Where Shadows Lie. And there's information about getting people to run games at Gen Con, in particular for Noble Armada 3rd Edition. And there's blog posts on there, and hopefully at some point soon there will be some blog posts by myself regarding technology in that setting. And of course there's our own blog, which if someone's got something interesting they want to have post up on the Darker Days blog, by all means they can always send it in and we'll be able to sit up and chuck it up on there, because it's easier than doing the magazine. I think right now magazine requires a bit more effort.
Indeed. All right, sweet. All right, hey guys, great episode, and everyone, thanks for listening.
See ya.
Later, everybody.
Bye, Matt.
Bye.
All right, guys, give me a second to just bring up my little notes here.
Yeah, you didn't share those little notes with anybody else.
Yeah, well, they're my notes, okay?
Jerk.
Guys, come up with your own ideas, okay? Gosh. Just
My idea is to
brainstorm as I'm
read your
talking.
notes and then come up with something good.
Oh, okay. Well, listen to my notes and then come up with something good. Don't worry, Chigg. I got some stuff in here for you. I think this is a little conversation that's going to go with the into the episode here. Let's just talk about this. All right. Anyway, guys, back to recording.
That's my idea there.
Guys, keep talking. I'm eating a cookie.